Plenty of professional wrestling moves look like they inflict a lot of pain, but only a few make fans stand up in their seats to declare that the match has to be over. These finishers deliver that feeling. The spear may seem like a simple move, but a wrestler driving their entire body weight into an opponent in a flash with no warning is absolute brutality, especially when you're the one taking a shoulder right to the gut. The mighty Goldberg created the name for the takedown in WCW, and the spear, usually followed by a jackhammer power slam, led the WWE Hall of Famer to an unprecedented 173 victories in a row. Since Goldberg christened the spear as we know it today, many other wrestlers have used the move, including Edge, who made it an out-and-out finisher in WWE. His best friend, Christian Cage, uses it as a secondary finisher too, as a nod to his old tag team partner. Roman Reigns also has the move down to a science, and his spear just looks brutal when it connects with his opponents. It's often preceded by a Superman punch, leaving an opponent dazed before they even take the finisher. One of the most devastating spears in recent memory happened at Payback 2023, where Rhea Ripley drove Kevin Owens through the barricade. We don't often see the spear from Ripley, but she could probably teach a masterclass in it. Spears through barricades or other obstacles tend to look extra devastating. Another highly memorable spear came with Edge's return to WWE as a surprise entrant in the 2020 Royal Rumble after a 9-year hiatus. The live broadcast of the event actually missed the Rated R superstar's first spear in years, but thankfully the footage of one of the most memorable spears in history exists online, and the mistake has been corrected in replays of the show. A true beast incarnate, Brock Lesnar has delivered the F5 to dozens of victims, from Stone Cold Steve Austin to John Cena to The Rock to even a shark in a commercial for 2003's SummerSlam. He's even given one to Vince McMahon himself. It's no small feat. Lesnar puts his opponents on his shoulders in a fireman's carry, flings him 90 degrees or more horizontally, and slams him down on his belly.
You want to hurt him, and so my objective is to look like I'm hurting somebody.
The force and fury of the F5 even inspired what you might call a parody, John Cena's finisher, originally called the FU. It's now known as the Attitude Adjustment in this more kid-friendly era of WWE. It takes some brutal power for Cena to get opponents up on his shoulders before also sending them crashing to the mat too, but it doesn't compare to Lesnar's F5. If the most brutal thing about the F5 isn't Lesnar's freakish strength, it's the force with which an opponent or some other unlucky target is drilled onto the mat almost face first. Lesnar does it with incredible quickness for his size. It might take Lesnar more than one bone-rattling F5 to end a match sometimes, but then again, sometimes he's just playing with weaker opponents, delivering multiple moves for what seems like his own enjoyment. Following inevitable trips to Suplex City during a match with Lesnar, a final F5 or two typically seals the deal for a Lesnar victory. The RKO is so surprising and memorable that it's become a meme for wrestling fans looking to prove that Randy Orton can, in fact, execute it from out of nowhere. There's a good chance that the wrestling fans in your life will have a favorite RKO moment. One particular fan favorite happened at WrestleMania 31, when Orton hit the RKO as a counter to Seth Rollins' Stomp. That said, there are many other perfectly delivered RKOs to choose from. It's also worth acknowledging WWE Hall of Famer Diamond Dallas Page, though. His Diamond Cutter, which had some slight differences from the RKO, first popularized a cutter as a finisher in America. The RKO may not seem like it requires brute strength, but what makes it so terribly dangerous is Orton's ability to keep his opponents on their toes by way of hitting it at completely unexpected times. It also has done quite a bit of real-life harm to Orton himself. The move has injured Orton to the point of needing back fusion surgery, leaving him out of action for well over a year as of the making of this video. Orton has confirmed that the injury is due to performing the RKO. He's even said he wishes he could go back in time to do a different move. Here's hoping when the third-generation star returns to the ring, he comes back with a different brutal finisher. But we also selfishly hope he breaks out the RKO for really special occasions. The Glamazon Beth Phoenix was, and occasionally still is, a force to be reckoned with in the women's division, due in large part to her destructive finisher, the Glam Slam. Phoenix's sheer strength and domination is what put her in the WWE Hall of Fame in 2017, and the Glamazon helped usher in the women's revolution, leading to women's wrestling being as big of a part of WWE as it is now. The Glam Slam sends a competitor face first into the mat. Phoenix first started with the company while the women's division was still more focused on looks than athletic ability. So sending a diva crashing into the mat with the risk of breaking her nose was a pretty big deal. The Glamazon has also hit plenty of Glam Slams on men as well. Most recently, she slammed Dominic Mysterio in February 2023 as she and her husband Edge were feuding with the Judgment Day. Phoenix has also gone on record to say her favorite person to hit with the Glam Slam was Dolph Ziggler. Perhaps the most hard-hitting Glam Slam of all was the one Phoenix performed on Eve Torres at Survivor Series 2011 in a match for the Divas Championship. Torres was positioned on the top rope, and Phoenix used her brute strength to slam the star down to the mat while standing on the second rope. In a 2019 interview with Ring the Bell, Phoenix admitted the epic Glam Slam wasn't planned, and she and Torres took a risk. Women's wrestling fans around the world are glad they did. For proof of Phoenix's influence, a number of currently active wrestlers, including Jade Cargill and Taya Valkyrie, use versions of the Glam Slam as their own finisher. WWE has largely banned piledrivers for quite some time now, but the company has long made two major exceptions to the rule: The Undertaker and Kane. Wrestling fans, especially those who grew up in the 90s, will absolutely remember the sheer power of the Brothers of Destruction picking up some very large men, swinging them around so they're upside down, and then dropping to their knees. The move sends an opponent down head first into the mat. When executed perfectly, the move looks absolutely devastating. It was dangerous enough that Undertaker later adopted the last ride as an alternate finishing maneuver because opponents were reportedly getting banged up taking the Tombstone. Both Kane and Undertaker have spoken about the difficulty of pulling off the brutal move themselves, including it not being great for the deliverer's knees.
We're talking about 300-plus pound individuals. That ain't the easiest maneuver in the entire world to pull off.
When Kane debuted in 1997 and adopted the move, he executed it faster than Taker, leading fans to call his version a snap tombstone, a powerful move made more savage by the quickness of its delivery. The Pedigree is one of the most famous finishing moves in WWE history, first used by Triple H and later adopted by others, including Seth Rollins. Cody Rhodes has also been known to hit the move on occasion, sending opponents down on their stomach via a double underhook facebuster. It's a devastating move and also powerful because some wrestlers, Triple H included, can get some good height when hitting it, making it all the more lethal in the middle of the ring. Triple H explained to WWE on Fox in 2019, "In my mind, I thought it was always something very unique that I had never seen done before. It sort of slowly evolved into me hooking the arms behind the guy's back and jumping up and having them come down full body face first." Triple H also admitted he didn't invent the move. He saw a clip of Andre the Giant doing it in a match in Japan. Originally called the Blackout when Seth Rollins used it in NXT, and then the Curb Stomp when he was a member of The Shield, the move is exactly what it sounds like. Rollins waits until his opponent is down on his knees on the mat in the middle of the ring and just stomps on his head, smashing it into the mat. The move was so hard-hitting that for a time the stomp was banned in WWE. Rollins told Fightful that after he won the WWE title at WrestleMania 31, Vince McMahon told him no more, so Rollins adopted Triple H's pedigree as a finisher. But then Rollins' association with Triple H ended, and he had another conversation with McMahon asking to bring it back. It worked.
Time heals all wounds, so whatever had wounded him, he was over it. And so he said, all right, bring it back, and here we are.
We're certainly glad Rollins was allowed to bring back this finisher because he executes it with such force and power, but also a kind of grace. It's also worth giving an honorable mention here to Randy Orton's punt, another kick to the head style move banned by WWE for its sheer devastation. Very few finishing moves are so brutal and powerful that they inspire an entire feud over their use. The One-Winged Angel is one of them. It's a finisher very few people have kicked out of. One of those is the master of the move himself, Kenny Omega. The One-Winged Angel is a breathtaking move that requires Omega to get his sometimes much larger opponents up on one shoulder and slam them to the mat. Its brutality has been a topic of discussion among fans throughout Omega's career, including various Reddit threads about just how protected this finisher really is. Besides Omega himself, the only other person to ever kick out of it is Kota Ibushi. Omega created the move while wrestling in Japan, and the power of the maneuver became somewhat legendary in the business before the cleaner made his way to AEW. Omega wears his love of video games on his sleeve, and the move is inspired by the Final Fantasy VII character Sephiroth, who has immense godlike power. Even though her time there was short, Karma cemented herself as one of the scariest divas in WWE history. She has spent far more time elsewhere, Impact Wrestling, AEW, and on the independent scene as Awesome Kong. Wherever she's wrestling, she has one of the most brutal finishers ever seen in women's wrestling. Kong gets her opponents up in the air, upside down, and facing away from her, so she can slam them down to the mat face and chest first. It's been said the two-time Knockouts champion actually did rupture implants with the move during one of her runs in the ring. Kong is one of the most dominant powerhouses to ever grace any women's division, and the Implant Buster proves her brute strength. As Karma in WWE, she introduced fans to a different kind of female star than fans were used to. Some may say she even surpassed the power of China. She's semi-retired now, but she did return to the ring for the first time since 2021 for the 1000th episode of Impact in September 2023. There's nothing especially fancy about the Chokeslam, but it takes considerable strength to pick an opponent up off the mat by their neck using only one hand. Taking a Chokeslam has to be brutal as well, with all the wind being knocked out of you as you come down to the mat for a back bump. Mick Foley has even claimed to have once spit up blood after taking the move from The Undertaker, and it wasn't even the end of their match, though it did involve falling through the top of a steel cage onto the ring below. Kevin Owens has also recalled his worst bump being a chokeslam from Braun Strowman onto the ramp at SummerSlam 2018. Many wrestlers use this move to set up their finisher, but others can simply end the match with one. When he was the Giant in WCW and in his early days in WWE as The Big Show, Paul White would often go straight for the pin after a high-impact chokeslam.